My name is Marcelo Gallardo. I am at the office of the CTO at TIBCO. I'm currently working on Project Air. And today I will do a quick overview of what we cover on our first session. And then I will show deploying business flows to the edge. In our first session, we showed that Project Air not only allows you to manage and interact with devices at the edge, but most importantly, it allows you to create business processes that can be easily deployed at the edge next to the devices or at the cloud, whatever is your preference or use case. In this particular session, we will go over how to deploy the business processes, which we call data pipelines. So let's get started. Let's open the Project Air user interface. So as we show in our first session, when we get started on Project Air user interface, we are presented with an overview of all the different devices that we are managing. And these devices can be organized by groupings and they can be on different locations. So for example, here in this example, I have 4 different groups of devices. Here I have one group of devices that's running on a Ubuntu virtual machine that's running actually on my Mac. I also have some devices connected to my running on my Mac. And here I have another set of devices that are running on an AWS. It's a train simulation set of devices, and it's running on a Ubuntu AWS machine. And here I have another grouping of devices that are running actually on a Raspberry Pi. So we will see that we can easily deploy the business processes no matter where the target platform is or what operating system is running on that platform. So let's start with, let's explore these the devices on this AWS machine. So when we click on the details, we are shown the list of devices that are actually running on that gateway. So in this case, we just have one simulator for a train. And here we can see an overview of that device and the sensors that are attached to that device. So in this case, we have a speedometer and a GPS sensor. So if we click on the GPS, we can see a history of where this train has traveled. And same thing for the speedometer sensor, we can see a history of the reading. So in this case, you can see that initially I deploy business processes to send this data to the cloud, and that's how we are showing this data. But we just have a few points of I deploy it and then I undeploy immediately. So I will show you now what happens when I deploy it again, and we will see the data showing in real time, and also we will be able to see a lot more data. So going back, we can continue reviewing some other gateways. So for example, if I go to my Raspberry Pi, I can also view the details, and here we can see that we have 2 devices, one that is coming from STMicroelectronics device, and another one, a simulator that is doing wafer sensing. Again, if we click on the wafer sensing, we can see that there's a snapshot coming from this device. And when we click, we can see like a history of the snapshots that we have received from that device. And we can do this exploring for all the different gateways that we have. But in this case, let's go back to our AWS and now to our AWS grouping of devices, and we want to configure a pipeline, a data flow, and then we will show how we will deploy. So to do that, we click on the pipeline icon here. And when we click here, this takes us to an editor that allows us to edit business flows for this particular gateway. So let's go here. And here we can see here's an empty editor and is ready for us to create these business flows. If I click here on the bottom, there's a table with list of existing data flows that have been created. And in this case, the status is saved. It's not, I deploy it, but then I deploy. So the current status is saved. So when I click, we can see what is this pipeline. But let's say I want to create a completely new pipeline. Let's give it a test. So we'll give it a meetup test. We call it this. And the type, we want to deploy this pipeline to the edge. And you can see that it's also an option to, we can create the pipelines to be deployed at the cloud. So in this case, we want to deploy at the edge. Here we can also select what kind of deployer we want to use. Currently, Project Air supports 2 deployers. One is the one that is created by Project Air. It's based on open source TIBCO Labs project called Lightcrane. So we call it the Air deployer. And also we support the Linux Foundation project Open Horizon, which is a framework also that allows you to do deployments to the edge. So in this particular demo, we're going to use the Air deployer, and then we can provide just a simple description of what is this. So I'll just call it test. And here we create the process. We start with a data subscriber. We subscribe to the data coming from the edge, from all the devices. So we call this select that protocol. And then we select a publisher activity, which will allow us to publish the data to some destination. In this case, we are going to publish to Air Cloud MQTT. That's the MQTT server that's listening for messages, and that's what we use in order to display our visualizations here. So here we connect these 2 activities, and that's all we need. And then we save the pipeline, and we can see that in the table we have the process that we just created is listed here. And now we have some other different operations that we can execute on the pipeline. And one of them is the deploying this pipeline. So that's what I am going to do, deploy the pipeline. In this case, what is happening right now is that we collect the configuration that was done here on the user interface, and that is sent to the servers as a Flogo configuration file. In the server, this Flogo configuration file is converted into an executable for the architecture where this gateway is located. So in this case, it's an AWS Ubuntu machine. So we are building a Flogo executable for that specific platform. And then after the executable is completed, then it is containerized and then deployed to that machine. So if I go back to, if I want to explore, I am going to use an application called Portainer, which allows us to see the different containers that are deployed on a specific machine. So this is the Portainer for that the AWS machine. And we can see that we have several applications, containers running on that machine. Most of them are the Edge framework that is running on that machine. And we also have some base TIBCO Labs Air based components. That one of them is the agent that allows you to do the deployments. So right now, if I do a refresh, we will see that the project that we just deployed probably will be coming here pretty soon. It takes a little while to do the deployment, but let's wait a little bit. While this is complete, let's try going back to our user interface, and let's go back to our gateways, and let's try to deploy another process to a different, let's deploy this one on my Mac. So for example, here, if I go to the pipelines, I can see that one was created here. So if I click it, let's just deploy this one that was saved previously. And again, I can do a deploy. So in this case, this deploy will deploy to my laptop that I am doing the demo from. Going back, let me see here. Let me go to my Raspberry Pi now. And also here, I have a pre-created process flow. And also let me try to deploy this one. Let's deploy. And we can see the status is deployed. So at this time, all the steps that I just described are being run again. And pretty soon they will start running on the target machine. Going back, let's try to deploy this to which one we haven't deployed to. We haven't deployed into the virtual machine. So here we go to the virtual machine, and also we have a business process. The same business process is simple. It just receives data and publishes to the cloud. So we are going to deploy. And here we can see that the process is deployed. So now we can hopefully go back to this, to the Portainer, devices. And here is the one that is all the containers running on my local machine. If I do a refresh, we can see here all the processes, the edges, and this one in specific, the first one is the one that we just deployed. We can see the ID here is 50925. If I go back to my UI and if I go to my local machine, which is this, and then if I look into the pipelines, we can see that the ID of this pipeline I created and I deployed is 50925. So going back here, we can verify that. And again, if I go to my AWS, hopefully this will be ready also. Not something has happened. Let me review here. If I go back to my AWS machine, something happened here. It looks like it's deployed, but something. Let me see what happened. Let me try this other one and deploy this. And let's hopefully in a couple of minutes, we will see that the project is deployed. But going back to the one that is running on my particular machine, the one that is 50925, we can also show you how the undeployed process works. So right now this container is running on the machine. So I am going to click it again. Here, if I go to my local machine, this is the Mac, select the project, the process, and then I will click undeploy. And then if I go back here, and then if I refresh, we can see that the container is gone. That concludes the demonstration. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.